Increase our faith. How many of us have taken the time to say that prayer? Plead with the Lord. Increase my faith, Lord. But I'm aware of the times that we live in, and we often give faith a second thought, not the first thought. I struggle with that myself. It's the time we live in. We have lots of distractions. But what's incredible is that Jesus is saying to us, it's not the size is not the issue. If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, tiny little fleck, you can tell trees to uproot themselves. Eucalyptus trees, get out of here. And they would plant themselves into the ocean. Reminds me of that Josh Groban Christmas song, right? If you just believe. Now for myself, I'm just as human as anyone else. I've always wanted more faith. Always wanted more faith. Rather than settling in with the faith that I have, I've always been looking for more. It's the capitalistic way, right? You want more. Even Paul, to Timothy, he doesn't use the word spark, but he's saying, fan into flame. That first line of the second line, fan into flame what has been given to you, even if it's a spark. It can transform the world if we fan it, if we cultivate that seed of faith. Jesus is challenging his disciples, his apostles. He's challenging us. We too can count ourselves as apostles. At the end of Mass, I say, go in peace. What do I say? To love and who? And to do what? Serve the Lord. You're being sent out there. To not be afraid to evangelize. Not be ashamed that you are a Christian. But to share your mustard seed faith with others. Not in spectacular ways sometimes, but in small ways. We just celebrated St. Teresa, the little flower, right? Do great things, small things, with the great love of God. With faith even the size of a mustard seed, we disciples can perform visibly powerful deeds. Not to get something back. I did mention we live in a capitalistic culture. Quid pro quo. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. No. That is not mustard seed faith. To gain extra credit points so I can get closer to Jesus in heaven. Or Mary. Or God the Father. No. Just because that's what's expected of us. Who follow the footsteps of Jesus Christ in our world today. Many years ago, before I was ordained, when I was just a youth minister, and I know we had some confirmation candidates here in our midst. You know, I actually didn't work with your age during the sophomore and juniors, right? Yeah. I worked with 7th and 8th grade students and their parents, you know, and I was young. I was 22 years old. That was 40 years ago. And I struggled with faith. Who doesn't struggle with the walk of faith? But I had it, and I knew I wanted to serve. And so I took this position as youth minister in this parish. I didn't think I had anything really special to offer. I have a voice. I'm deeply emotional, as you can see. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, kind of do. Anyway, I just offered my faith. I offered my witness, my mustard seed faith, and that affects people's lives. Sometimes we don't know what I did. I was doing only what I felt I was called to do. Years later, as I was studying for the priesthood, my dear friend Lucy, who was the religious ed director, who worked with me when I was a youth minister, dear friend of mine, wrote me one of her last letters before she died. And she said, Dave, do you remember who Kathy Benda is? And I said, because I was reading the letter, and in my head I'm going, well, yeah, she was one of my leaders, right? Anyway, so I said, in my head I'm going, yeah. And then she continues, well, I saw her at Jolene's wedding, and we had time to speak together. Kudos to you, Dave Metz, Lucy said to me. Kathy shared that because of her time at Assumption Parish, and with the example of David Metz, that's me, by the way, our youth minister, she strove to learn Spanish. Yo hablo de español súper bien. And she served in the Peace Corps for 2 years after college. That's mustard seed faith, my friends. Mustard seed faith. It's not about increasing. It's about living and doing. And Spanish says, poner en práctica. Put in practice the seed of faith that has been given. It doesn't matter the size. What matters is what you do with it. And when you do, it thrives. It's the next step that's the hardest, I think, for any disciple. And that's the servant disciple. And that's what Jesus is telling us in that last line. He says, we are unprofitable servants. We're all about making profit. Right? Right? You only have to look at it. Your lives, our lives, we have a capitalistic system, we've got, well, I don't need to go any further. The challenge of being an unprofitable service, Jesus says, we are unprofitable, so we've done what we were obliged to do. Another story about my childhood. 5 brothers, I'm one of those 5, and a sister. We lived in a little neighborhood up in south central Minnesota. In the summers, my parents would say, go and mow the neighbors' lawns. Do not ask for pay. No money. No exchange. Just do it. And we grumbled. Who wouldn't grumble? We mowed those lawns. We took good care of our neighbors in the springs and in the summer. In the fall, go and rake leaves. Don't ask for money. This is throughout my childhood, okay? And adolescence. We did it. The winter, you can't even imagine winters in Minnesota. Okay? Shovel those sidewalks, clean out those driveways, and make them perfect. We did it. No quid pro quos. No scratches on the back. Pats, yes. No vainglory. No valuing myself by the amount of money I made. Unprofitable servants, not to the neighborhood. A couple of years ago, a young couple, he had a father and a pregnant mother. They had 2 children as well. They got stranded at a beach south of Half Moon Bay. My cousin lives in San Francisco, Pat. It was a hot day in San Francisco, believe it or not. Okay, so we're probably talking about September, right? Okay, hot day in San Francisco. And she said, Dave, you've got a car, let's get out of here, let's go to a beach. So we just got into my car and we drove south, and we just kept driving south. And we ended up south of Half Moon Bay, and we saw this tiny little beach called Pomponio Bay. Tiny thing. Cousin had never been there. I was brand new to the area at the time. And we stopped there. Upon arrival at that beach, guess what? That young father approached me as we were heading down to the beach. And he asked me, he says, is there a public restroom at this beach? And I'm being the age that I was and am, you never pass up opportunities to locate where the bathrooms are, right? Right? Just remember that when you get older, okay? Don't pass up the opportunity to know where the bathrooms are. And I said, yes, there is one on the other side of the parking lot. I noticed it. And so he was grateful, and off he went with his family, his children. 2 hours later, after just enjoying the beach, walking along the beach and sitting there soaking in the sun, we went back to our car and we started packing up everything we had brought, and he approached me again. Excuse me, sir? I was playing with my family on the beach and in the ocean. We were having a great time, and he pointed to his kids and his wife. I lost the keys to my car. My cell phone is in my car. Would you be able to let me use yours? I said, oh, of course. So I pulled out my phone. We walked around for maybe 15 minutes trying to find a signal, for crying out loud. There was no signal there south of Half Moon Bay. Anyway, we finally got across the Highway 1 and found a signal, and he was able to call his cousin. But his cousin couldn't get to them for a couple hours. And I'm like going, okay, we're on our way out. Now what do? My cousin and I determined that she would stay at Pomponio Beach while I took the family of 4 and the pregnant mother, of course, one on the way. And I took them to the McDonald's in Half Moon Bay. Up there we went. And by that time I got to know their name. Nelson and Caroline, children. They got to know that I was Father Dave. And he said to me at the McDonald's, Father Dave, I will never forget this day. Can I give you something for bringing me here? And I just responded immediately, thank you, and I'm really grateful that we got to meet each other like this, but I don't need anything. And it's the truth, I don't need a thing. And I said, your wife's pregnant. You got 2 kids and 1 on the way. Keep it. I was just doing what I'm supposed to do. We live in such tumultuous times where fear and hatred are cultivated in our lives. We're taught to fear the stranger, and I doubt it, but I let doubt lead me to faith. Even my mustard seed faith. Of course, I was 30 years older than when I was a youth minister. Nelson and Caroline, they were worried about the safety of their family, the one on the way. And Pat and I were concerned about them. All of us doing what we are obliged to do as a human family. Take care of each other. We don't need to ask Jesus to increase our faith. Even when we're facing systems of injustice, violence, hatred. in our world today. God still gives mustard seed faith, and that's all we need to stir that spark of faith into a flame that will transform this world into the kingdom of God. Every act of kindness, every act of forgiveness, healing, reconciliation, justice, and peacemaking, helping people, walking with people, unleashes that potential of our mustard seed faith to transform the entire world. When we do this, we're doing exactly what Jesus commanded.